causes of severe rent burden in the community and potential solutions.
Sure. Thank you. Good evening. Before you tonight is our annual Severe Rent Burden Community Meeting. Before us is going to be a quick conversation about demographics and data. This will be sort of like rerunning through several meetings that we've already had in the past, since we just had a large conversation about our housing data, but we'll do a quick overview of that. Some causes and consequences of severe rent burden and some barriers to it. And then we also have some service providers in our community here to talk with us about the work that they do in our community to help the situation. We have Crossroads Communities, Community Services Consortium, Habitat for Humanity, and Dev Northwest will show up sooner or later, hopefully. And then at the end of that, we'll talk about some possible solutions and then open it up to some general discussion. This is an open forum, so counselors, if you have any questions as we go along the way, please feel free to interrupt me or have an open dialogue with our service providers as well. So why are we here? Short story, the state's making us. In 2018, House Bill 4006 was passed, which said any city with a population over 10,000 with a population that has over 25% of it categorized as severe rent burden must hold a community meeting annually to talk about the causes and consequences, barriers, and possible solutions. So, quick definition of what housing affordability is versus severe rent burden. We have 4 different categorizations. Universally across the United States, you're identified to have housing that is affordable to your income if you're only dedicating 30% or less of your income towards your income, your mortgage, and your utilities. You become cost burdened if you're paying more than 30%. You become severely rent burdened if you're paying more than 50% of your income. And then for those that have severely low income, we do have regulated affordable housing that is often subsidized by the federal and state government to provide housing for extremely low and low income households with, generally speaking, area median income of less than 60%. So what we're talking about right now is that we have households of over 25% of our residents households paying more than 50% of their income towards their rent and utilities. So 1 in 4 of our households meet that. Some good news, the city of Lebanon is down 10.5% from when we started categorizing severely rent burdened communities in 2019. And we can be proud to say that we have the largest reduction in comparison to any other city in the state for a reduction in our severe rent burden community status. So that's something to be proud of. We've done a lot of work in the last couple of years. So just for some basic information, Lebanon is one of 13 communities that is within the 10,000 to 25,000 population. So we're considered a medium-sized city. And there are 32 cities that have a population of more than 10,000. There's 32 cities that fit in that categorization. So about half fall under the severe rent burden category. A lot of that is due to the cost of rent and incomes not rising based off of the cost of rents. My numbers are incredibly small, so I apologize. But generally speaking, rents have gone up pretty steadily. Last year, just on average, based off of Zillow real estate markets, we went up 4% in our rental income, which requires a $1,300 per month rent for a single bedroom apartment to almost $1,500 for a 2-bedroom and about $2,000 for a 3-bedroom. And I put below there the income required to be able to afford that size of an apartment while still being considered having cost affordability of 30% or less of your income going towards your rental. And as you can tell, based off of our previous presentations over the last several years, we do not have an area median income that fits within even the lowest income category needed for a 1-bedroom. This table can show you where our distribution is of the number of households based off of income levels. you can see that approximately 810 renter households in Lebanon are severely rent burdened. So that fits within the first 2.5-ish tiers. And then when you add in the community, the members that are cost burdened but not severely cost burdened, you now are over 56% of all of our households experiencing some level of cost burden within their household based off of the cost of renters. This is an interesting table in comparison to the next slide. This is for renter income, and you can see where the majority of rental income falls is in the 20 to say 50,000. In comparison, for actually trying to own a home, the home ownership incomes obviously are much more skewed towards requiring a much higher income to be able to afford an actual purchased home that you own in our community. But even so, you have about 43 to 44% of our households that own homes that are considered cost burdened as well. They do not provide a stat for home ownership of severe cost burden, so I don't have that status for you. But 43% still having a cost burden while owning a home is still something that indicates that the city should work towards solving that issue. So some of the causes for rent burden, rental prices are increasing at a faster rate than incomes are. And we do have a higher population of senior citizen residents that have a fixed income that is not increasing at the same rate as inflation or market rate costs. We also still have a very low vacancy rate of our rental properties. When we did our housing needs analysis in 2019, our vacancy rates were 4% across the board for all of our apartment units. When I did an analysis, I took a sampling of our apartment units this last year in our conversation. Even with the additional units that we have brought online, we're still sitting at about 4% vacancy rate. So we have housed more people, but we are still facing a demand for more rental housing or more right-priced housing for people to move into. There's the mismatch of housing need versus housing type that's available. We have again had this conversation over the last year regarding the fact that we don't have a lot of starter homes. We don't have a lot of mixed type of rental opportunities other than basic apartments. For people to be able to move in to right size their income to the housing type that they need. We do have a lack of actual income restricted affordable housing units. We have made decent strides on this since 2019 with building 188 income restricted units in the city, but we still need more. And so that is impacting the lower income and severely lower income households who cannot afford a market rate unit, but there's not an income restricted unit available to them. You also just have the general high cost of housing in the state and the region. This has been an ongoing topic in the state, which has been a major push for them, causing the needs for the housing production strategy and the governor's goal to produce 36,000 new housing units per year to try to address that issue. And then again, insufficient housing stock. And then the high cost to build is related to lack of land availability, needing to pull infrastructure to the site, mitigating environmental constraints such as wetlands to be able to build the site. It's just generally more expensive to build in the Willamette Valley than some other areas. And it's more expensive to build in Oregon than some other states as well. Some of the consequences, the people that are experiencing this severe rent burden have housing insecurity. As their rent prices go up, their incomes aren't commensurate to that increase and they can't necessarily afford it, which requires people to bunk up multiple housing units or can increase homelessness. It also requires individuals to move far more often, which adds to the cycle because the process of moving in itself is an expensive process. And so you have to try to move to a more affordable housing unit by also expending the cost of moving. It disrupts the household, it disrupts student learning. There's an increased need for social services. There's an inability to create savings because of those moving costs, and then also trying to find additional opportunities to pay for the higher rents. And as you saw in our statistics with the incomes and lack of ability to own a home because of the housing stock that we have for homeownership, you have far less homeownership rates in a community that is severely rent burdened. You see that in our community with the stats that we're basically at 50-50 of rental versus homeownership as well. And because we have low stock and because we have not the sufficient plethora of options of housing, you have the inability to move out of rental to homeownership and move up the market. So those are some of the consequences. Some of the barriers to severe rent burden. This was an result of a survey that was done of local governments as well as developers to identify what are the barriers to actual housing construction. Number one is lack of availability of land and affordable housing developers in the area, as well as the high cost of land. On the lower end is permit fees, the processing time that cities take to process the permits, and for example, the uncertainty of a land use entitlement process going through public hearings and that kind of thing. But all of these are listed as at some level a barrier to developing, which equates to a barrier to providing a sufficient number of units to address the rent burden status. So I zoomed through all of that. Does anybody have any questions before we move on to the next part of the equation?
Is it too simple to ask if we're suddenly 24.9, then we don't have these meetings anymore?
If we're at 24.9, we don't have to have these meetings.
That cutoff, it's crazy.
Except for if it goes to the next year and we go back up to 25.2, we have to have the meetings again. So it is, we're going in the right direction, but we want to do a bit more work so that we get a little bit lower than 24.9.
Actually, I do have a question. What's the major factor for our numbers going down as you see it?
We have had a significant increase of housing stock since
Okay.
2019. That's both for sale and rental housing stock, but a significant increase in rental. That's a major factor. You also have some industries that were increasing their salaries for their employees. That helps. But a large component of it that I can identify a direct contribution is the increased housing stock.
Inventory, okay.
Do you know what accounts for the fact that on the homeowners slide there, the second highest group was $20,000 to $35,000? Is that subsidized somehow, or
Not on homeowners.
isn't that what that said?
Yeah, so the second largest group was the 20 to 35. I'm identifying that largely contributed to legacy homeownership, where you have families that have been in there generationally.
That makes sense. It just kind of stuck out as a weird number to
You
me.
know, like if I leave my house to my son,
Yeah. Anything else about those stats? So you've heard me talk about this for a long time already, so I'm going to turn it over to our esteemed people that do this and actually have on the ground help for individuals. Like I said at the beginning, we do have Community Services Consortium, Dev Northwest, Habitat for Humanity, and Crossroads Communities here to talk about the services that they provide. So I welcome two up at a time to share our microphones and introduce yourselves and chat about what you do for our community.
is the red light on?
Red light's on.
Light is on.
Pull it close.
So I have to push this?
Pull it close.
Keep the
Oh.
red light on, but pull it close.
All right, can you hear me?
Now I can.
All right, thank you. Thank you, and I am Dina Eldridge. I'm the Housing Services Manager for Community Services Consortium. So as you know, we serve Lynn, Benton, and Lincoln counties, and I am in charge of all of our programs that help people who are homeless, but also we spend quite a bit of our funding preventing people from becoming homeless and what we call homeless prevention activities. Michael, did you want to introduce yourself first?
I am Michael Couch from Crossroads Communities. We are a Lebanon-grown organization, nonprofit. Our focus, similarly, is to help prevent people from becoming homeless and also assisting those who are homeless getting back into housing.
All right. I just thought I'd give you some numbers on who we've served in Lebanon in the past year with our homeless prevention funds. So over the past 12 months, CSC has served 152 households in Lebanon who were facing eviction. 62% of those renters were without any other kind of housing subsidy or a housing voucher. In other words, no help from ongoing help from the Housing Authority or any other kind of program. 12% did have a housing voucher or some sort of ongoing subsidy, in most cases with the local Lynn Benton Housing Authority. That equated to 18 households. 19% were unstably housed when they first came to us, which means they basically had already lost their own housing and were couch surfing or perhaps living in a motel that they were paying for themselves. And 12.5% had actually experienced homelessness at some point in the past 3 years. So when they exited with us, 25% of those people did have a voucher or an ongoing subsidy that they could rely upon to be stable. That was about 38 of those households, but all the rest were still paying full rent. We obviously get grant money to assist people, federal and state. Our funding is finite. We get allocations of funding, and when they run out, and they do, we have to serve fewer people or stop serving people at all. So obviously, we have to prioritize who we serve so that our dollars go the farthest and make the biggest impact. So generally speaking, when we screen people who are behind in their rent, we inquire about why they fell behind, if it was an emergency. During COVID, that was everybody had an issue, we understand. But in normal times, we ask about, did you get sick, miss work? Did you get laid off? Those sorts of things. And also, we're looking to see that if CSC helps you, will you be able to sustain your rent once again if we catch you up on your rental arrearages, or if we help you move into your own unit, will you be able to pay the rent ongoing? Because with our homeless prevention programs, these are short-term, one-time, in most cases, assistance. We don't have a program that if you're just a chronically rent-burdened renter and you just can't afford your rent and you don't have any kind of solution to that in the short term, we don't have a program that can subsidize your rent for the long term. We do have that for people who've unfortunately become homeless, but not for people who are still renting or still housed. So we have to triage who we can help, because we feel that if we help people today catch up their rent, but next month they're going to be in the same position, meaning their income is not enough to sustain that rent and their other household expenses, then they're going to be back in the same boat. So we do try and prioritize people who we feel can be stable and go on and maintain that housing after we help them. So we went back through our records, and of the people that were denied our assistance at screening, and they get denied for various reasons. Sometimes they can be over income, or maybe they don't really have an eviction notice, those sorts of things. But 34 of them from Lebanon were denied because they were basically not sustainable. In other words, their income was chronically not enough to pay their rent. And in the short term, they did not have a plan, such as, I've gotten a new job, I've gotten a Section 8 from the Housing Authority, or something to that effect that's going to allow them to continue to pay their rent ongoing after we can help them. And as far as the conditions that cause this, Kelly did an awesome job. She hit all my high points about why this happens and what impact it has. I always like to mention the effect on the business community because, as you know, if you're a small business owner or any kind of business owner, you have to have employees. And when you've got employees that are rent burdened and constantly stressed about being able to afford where they live, things, the slightest thing can knock them completely off their game. They can lose their housing and they have to move. And that impacts their ability to be a good, productive employee for you. And it adds to turnover for businesses, which is a huge expense. And another thing is, as was mentioned, in a healthy housing system, people get to a point where they can graduate from being renters to being homeowners. And as long as that path seems unattainable for most people, which it is right now, due to high costs of housing and now mortgage rates, then that keeps people stuck in the rental market. And that just exacerbates the already out of balance supply and demand. So until a community can work on moving people back into home ownership, it's going to be really hard to build your way out of rent burden. Although I will say, as Kelly mentioned, this community of all the ones I serve has done the best over the last few years, building affordable housing units, particularly like Applegate Landing that Michael is part of, Colonia Paz. That's a great new asset to your community. So I commend you for those strides because there's other communities that haven't done near as well. So I guess all I can say in conclusion is, as far as strategies, I would suggest to keep on your improvement path, continue encouraging affordable housing development, include affordable home ownership in your plan so you can move people up the scale of housing. And just an awareness that as this situation, until the situation eases, it's going to create higher levels of homelessness at the other end of the scale. So, any questions I can answer?
I will.
Sure.
For transparency, complete transparency, before Michael has a chance to talk, the organization he represents is the one that I founded and board president of. And that Kelly is on our board also. So just so everybody knows that we're involved with that. But I had a question for you, kind of a baseline knowledge thing for folks. Most people, when they think about affordable housing, they think Section 8. How long does it take to get Section 8 certificate?
In Lynn Benton, it's about a 3-year wait. They just, from what I heard last, they pulled a batch of people and they had been on the waiting list since January of 2020.
So the Section 8 is not an immediate fix kind of deal
Oh, no,
for
no,
subsidizing housing.
no.
And when you get your Section 8 certificate, it has a deadline on it, correct?
Yes, that's
How long
right.
is that?
I think the maximum anyone can get is 120 days. Now, people can ask for extensions if they can base it on a disability, in other words, a reasonable accommodation to get a longer term to look. But frankly, if you can't make that argument, then your maximum is 120 days.
If you don't have something in 120 days, it expires.
That's right. And they go to the next person.
So our lack of affordable housing in the market
Right.
is a big part of that equation.
It definitely is, because I believe the last I had heard, even nationwide, of the people that finally get approved for one of those vouchers, only 60% are able to actually find a place that gets approved and get on and get housed under the voucher. At least 40% end up failing to find it in the time they have and end up having to give it back.
So when we get questioned about why we're doing so much of the apartments and affordable housing, we have a baseline knowledge of why we need to do that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Michael.
Again, Michael Couch, I'm the Executive Director of Crossroads Communities. Our focus, unlike many other social service organizations, is looking at needs from a business point of view. My background being in banking and finance, we take a slightly different approach. And so identifying the needs within the community helps us be able to address those. I like to point out that a lot of folks say the problem is affordable housing. Affordable housing actually is more of a symptom. And in many cases, people who fall into the affordable housing category may or may not have a stable job, may or may not have a living wage job, might have other situations within their life that make it very difficult for them to be able to function at what the average person does not know would say a standard level. These people generally have a lot on their plate because they may have 2 jobs. They may have 1 car for 4 family members. And so when we start looking at this from an outside point of view, saying, well, how difficult can it be to A or how difficult can it be to B, we're taking a look at that from our own point of view, where yes, we have obligations. Yes, we carry on a 9-to-5 job. A lot of the folks who are the working poor may be working upwards of 60 or 70 hours a week at 2 different jobs, but still barely able to make ends meet. So we like to approach things from a point of view saying, how did it get to this point? What's going on? What we found looking around not just Lebanon, but multiple other communities as we received technical assistance grant from OHA, is that a lot of the folks who meet the qualifications for affordable housing have additional things going on in their lives. You'll find a large percentage of single parents, individuals who are survivors of domestic violence, people dealing with substance use disorder, people dealing with severe and persistent mental illness. We like to take a look at that and say, how can we assist folks not just to maintain, but to improve? So over the course of the last years, we've assisted with getting Applegate Landing opened up within the community, additional 48 units of affordable housing. As of 2 months ago, we took possession of another apartment complex, which we are renovating. We'll be introducing that as affordable housing. That's another 20 units. We've also begun introducing programs to address some of the issues that plague individuals dealing with chronic homelessness, low income, or requirement of affordable housing, including job training programs. We worked with Willamette Workforce Partnership for 1.5 years to roll out a program addressing youth job competencies, teaching them soft skills, marketable skills, getting them employment, because a lot of what Lebanon is dealing with now are the results of back in the late 70s, early 80s, when the bottom fell out of the timber market. We're now dealing with generational poverty. Families that have become used to relying on certain programs or out of necessity, or that's just the way that it worked. They're now looking at passing it on to a 2nd or 3rd generation. We are looking at being able to disrupt that, to be able to provide them opportunities to improve their lives. We're focusing on the ones that want to. So our focus is providing that stabilization, because you can't build a solid life on a shaky foundation. We're looking at implementing programs and services that'll be able to assist people with improving, that often use term a hand up, not a hand out. And we're looking at further developing programs even as we bring in more affordable housing into Lebanon, because we will always have people that'll need affordable housing. The measure of success is, can we outstrip the ability to provide for folks, then we have more people coming into the scene. So if we can increase our capacity to assist people in need beyond the speed at which that need is growing, then we can call that a success.
That's why I hired him.
Any questions?
Thank you, guys. If we can rotate out for Zoe and Tina to join us. These are representatives from Habitat for Humanity and Dev Northwest.
And from where?
Habitat for Humanity and Dev Northwest.
Okay.
I'm Tina.
Get off.
Hurry up.
I
Come on
know,
up here,
right?
Gimpy.
Okay, go ahead. Hello, my name is Luke Hopley. I'm
You
with,
can
Can you
put your
pull that closer?
microphone.
oh, sorry. Hello, my name is Luke Hopley. I'm with Development Northwest, Lynn and Benton County Emergency Assistance Program. Our program is assisting individuals who are up to 6 months in past due rental, utility, and mortgage assistance payments. Recently, we began in Benton County, but was granted an expansion into Lynn County as well. This began in July of this year, and currently our program is from COVID-19 based grants. So our program requires that they are currently a Lynn and Benton County resident, that they have a reason relating to their assistance related to COVID-19. And sorry. And with our recent expansion, we have been given an extension of our program that was set to sunset this September. So our program is looking to sunset this February, and currently we have about 200,000 in rental utility and mortgage assistance funds. And that's about it about our program.
Do you have any questions for him? Okay. I'm Tina Brashears, Executive Director for Habitat for Humanity here in Lebanon, and I service all of East Lynn County, all the way up to Cascadia, and then this side of I-5. Yes. Anyway, I don't deal with rentals. I deal with affordable housing, building homes for families, and we repair them. So we have repair and preservation programs that we help people to stay in their homes. And then also build a new home for families that are 30 to 80% of the AMI for Lane County. We struggle. Our biggest thing is trying to find a way to build more affordable housing. And we're doing the conversations of doing community land trusts in our community, but trying to find property is cumbersome. It's really hard to try to find something to build a couple of homes on, and lot sizes need to be a little bit smaller than the 5,000 square foot. Our homes are typically 12 to 1,500 square feet. Anything larger than about a 2,500 square foot lot is just a lot of property for low income families to take care of. And so we're trying to venture down that road so that we can build multiple homes at the same time. So we look for acres, anywhere from an acre or more of property, so that we can do that to build those homes. I have yet to be successful to find those. We've even brought forth the ADUs. I think we've talked about those, maybe some cottages that we've talked about in town. But again, it's the property that we have the issues. And when we do find that property, most of the time, the setbacks are the wetlands that we have issues with. So we have a lot of that we have to try to work around. So other than that, our biggest demographic of people that we serve right now with our home repair and preservation program are seniors. We get a lot of phone calls for seniors that are trying to stay put in their homes. So we're building accessibility ramps and changing the inside of their homes so that they're able to get around in them, because we do not have places for seniors to go. There's no senior housing anywhere. We just don't have it. And apartments, most of them can't live in them unless they're a ground floor or they have an elevator system in them. So that's where I bring, for Habitat, we bring that in as part of that, just trying to remodel homes or fix them so that people can stay in them. We don't normally do anything with rentals unless I have a permission from the landlord to go in and help, but they end up helping with us. We'd be the contractor and they come in with the funds so that we can try to help them, help their seniors or families that are in them to be able to get them fixed properly so that they can stay in them. But I don't know if you guys have any questions about what, I have brochures I can leave with you, Kelly, if anybody wants them, or KJ. We have some different programs. We have veterans programs we're getting ready to start for next year for veterans. And then we're hoping to have some more senior programs to get started. But so if you know of anybody that calls the city that needs help with repairs, we do that as long as training, because we have a lot of seniors we get into our restore. We work with Easter Seals, and my oldest trainer right now, he's 91 years old, working because he can't afford to live in his home without that extra income. So yeah, and we work with Willamette Workforce for the kids to teach them how, so that they're trainable and to get into the workforce, because a lot of them these days don't understand work ethic, and they need a little bit of help of understanding how that works. So we are. We started a house in February and we're almost finished with it. It's in Sotaville up on Ridge Street. Yep. That I had a couple pieces of donated property from the city of Sotaville, and we're getting ready to start another one about a quarter mile down the road from where that one is at. So we do have a family of 4 that is going into the home up there, and then we'll be pulling applications probably in the next month or 2. We're dealing with power issues. We have to drop the power in order, in ground, in order for us to build on that piece of property, or I would be building a very long, skinny home. So, but yes, we are currently building up in Sotaville. Do you have any questions for me?
Any other questions?
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
So we have 4 wonderful organizations that are doing the good work in our community. Part of Dev Northwest, we work with a different section with them to do our CDBG program. So the city of Lebanon is on its 2nd round of partnering with them to be the representative for all of Lynn County to apply for the Community Development Block Grant Program to provide for housing rehabilitation and weatherization for low-income households. Stay in their homes to help those legacy families with being able to afford their home ownership. So we do have that program that we're applying for as well. And then you also have state and federal tax credits, which are applied for locally. It is a competitive program, extremely competitive, and that is to help build those larger projects like the Colonial Plazas and Applegate Landing as well. So we have a lot of partners. In addition to that, to go even further, we have a large consortium of companies and organizations that are working on the homelessness issue through the multi-agency coordination program with Lynn County. And so the people that are here tonight are a drop in the bucket of the actual organizations that are systemically trying to work through the issue. From homelessness all the way up through housing as well. So we do have lots of partners. We all just need to keep working together. Some support excuse me, some support for affordable housing we've already talked about, but we've done 188 units of affordable housing since 2020. We've had our CDBG programs, and there's also emergency housing assistance, which CSC just talked about. But what the city of Lebanon is doing was something we've also been talking about for the last year and a half, and you'll see how all of these start to work together based off of the commentary that's been provided today. So for example, the land-based strategies, Habitat for Humanity is talking about the fact that they're having difficulty obtaining land to be able to build that affordable housing. A large number of the items in the land-based strategies for our housing production strategy focus on trying to work with partners to create land trusts work with institutional landowners to donate land for affordable housing, and evaluate ways to do land acquisition and baking to try to work with organizations like Habitat to build affordable housing that would also address the for sale product. Our land use strategies also address that by allowing for smaller lot sizes for sale development units, as well as different types of affordable housing, little a affordable of affordable at market rates for more levels of income rather than big A of actual subsidized affordable housing. And so there's a number of our land use strategies that we've been working through for the last year and a half that directly try to address these items that our partners have been identifying as barriers to helping the severe rent burden. So part of the solution is the items that we've all been talking about and are going to be implementing over the next 8 years as well. So with that, any other thoughts, concerns, questions, stories? It is also a public meeting, so you're welcome to ask any of the community members if they'd like to speak on the topic as well.
Any questions? Thank you, Kelly. Anybody want to speak on this? No? All righty. If there's no other questions, I guess we'll adjourn this meeting. Did you have something?
No, I was just going to say thank you for the comprehensive overview. I appreciate it. And the partners as well. Thank you.
We needed more numbers and stuff.
So on that note, with no other questions, the work session is adjourned at 5:41.
We need to be, but I don't know if that's part of it.
Call the meeting to order. Please rise for the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Gosh, I'm old.
Will the city recorder please call roll?
Mayor Jacola,
Here.
Council President Steinhebel,
Here.
Councilor Dykstra. Here. Councilor Mann,
Here.
Councilor Savage, Councilor Ulfers,
Here.
and Councilor Workman.
Present.
Thank you. Consent calendar, the following consent calendar items are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be a separate discussion of these items unless the counselor so requests. In this case, the items will be removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. You'll see them right there. Is there a motion to approve? Or
I so move.
Second.
it's then, motion's been made to approve. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, consent calendar has been approved. Public comment. Citizens may address the council by filling out a testimony card prior to speaking and hand it to the city recorder. Each citizen is provided up to 5 minutes to provide comment to the council. The council may take an additional 2 minutes to respond. The city recorder will accept and distribute written comments at speaker's request. So,
Mayor, can you turn your mic on?
oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Now to see if I can do this. Oh, that ain't right. Here. First up, Teresa Peltner.
Engineering issue.
One of these seats.
Hello. I've been a member of the Lebanon community for the past 23 years. And recently, my family and I took a trip to the city of Bellingham, Washington. And while we were touring that city, we came across part of their community that was really cool. And as I was experiencing it, I thought, man, this would really be a good fit for our community. How could we get something like this here? I came home and I was gonna look into contacting you all, and I saw something come up on my news feed that possibly the city of Lebanon has a community enrichment grant or something like that becoming available for some projects. And so I wanted to share this idea with you. The place is called the Portal Container Village. It's operated by the Port of Bellingham in Wasco County in Bellingham, Washington. It's a unique concept that provides enrichment to their community that can be enjoyed by people of all ages. The idea and development is one that can begin small with room for expansion and is of relatively low cost to construct and maintain, especially if Lebanon were able to partner with some local resources like Knife River. That could be a benefit to both parties. This space could also provide a potential revenue source within itself to offset any maintenance costs, which would most likely actually be low cost to the city anyways. Bellingham's Portal Container Village features the following things. The way they have it set up is they have a rotating fixed Connex trailer area of retail shops and food vendors, rotating food truck station, and then rotating cider and beer garden, bike rentals, a dirt pump track and dirt jump tracks with different skill sets that are for use with pedal bikes. The venue is also available for hosting for pump track or dirt jump competitions. And there's a community use grass area with a small event stage. It's a venue space for community event hosting. And it's also, very family friendly, and it's a public use area for the community when they're not hosting events at no cost to the community. The concept of using the containers as the vendor food space keeps construction costs down and the shops secure, while creating a fresh urban industrial type of vibe that would probably complement the Lebanon community well. The development of an area like this in Lebanon would provide a family-friendly area for all members of our community to enjoy for outdoor recreation and relaxation, and promotes a healthy lifestyle for our community members, most of which are younger populace, actually. It can be open to the public free of charge on a regular basis, and it can also be used to host specific revenue in generating events like the Bike Fest or Makers Markets and that sort of thing. A good example of this can be found by looking up Northwest Tune-Ups, which is a large-scale paid entry event that they hold there at the portal in Bellingham. That's an example. Many of the track use areas that are being developed in communities are fastly becoming destination use areas, both for event venues and also just for family outings. An upgraded version that also could be applied to this project would be to construct an actual pump track similar to the Homestead track in Redmond. I'm not sure if any of you guys are familiar with that. That track is constructed out of synthetic sports paving type of materials, and it's kind of maintenance free opposed to using dirt. Just some definitions really quickly. If you don't have a youngster and you don't know what a pump track or a dirt track is, a pump track is used with a pedal style bike with a series of undulating rises, berms, and banks in which the rider gains momentum through using a pumping motion with their upper body instead of pedaling by foot. And that same track can be used by people or children of all ages. It can be constructed out of dirt, sometimes wood, or synthetic maintenance-free materials. A dirt jump track is more of a track used with a pedal style bike consisting of form-shaped jumps, berms, and banks with a drop-in point for riders to gain momentum as they enter the jump line. Usually you'll see a track that features varying degrees of difficulty throughout the track or separate levels that can be easily constructed. The placement of the space like this in the proposed area that I saw was across from the firehouse at Cheeto Lake. I saw that as one of the possible proposed areas. That could provide an organized approach to the infrastructure of Lebanon that you guys already kind of have in place, especially working in conjunction with the Lebanon Trail System, incorporating like a bike walking trail from Cheeto Lake to that proposed area. That would tie those spaces in pretty nicely together. And overall, it just would be nice for Lebanon to possibly consider its entire populace when choosing which direction to take for this exciting chance for our community with this enrichment project. We have a lot of young families with children, as well as a lot of college-age students in our community now. And we've already done a lot of upgrading to like our sports fields and those things, and it would be kind of refreshing to turn some attention and resources to something new and fresh for our community that would provide a more inclusiveness to its members. I can leave this with you, and this has some contact information about the portal and the Homestead pump track. I would encourage you, if you are interested at all to look at this concept, to go on their website or their Facebook page, because it shows a lot of really cool pictures and stuff of how it's laid out. And this is an idea that could be taken all or in part or none at all. But I just thought I'd share it with you because we experienced it and it was really fun and it was really cool. And I think that I could see people in the community enjoying it. So.
Alrighty, thank you. Is there any questions? Thank you so much. Next up is Kay Curtis. Cortez? Oh, I'm sorry.
So on the 9th of August, I came here to advocate for my neighbors and myself. It was about a four-way stop and truck drivers. After the meeting, I was told that 2 city council members would go out and investigate to see what could be done for the safety of our citizens. As I as well, not too long ago, gave Ron a picture of a sign showing trucks where they are supposed to use. The only thing I indicated was truck access delivery off of Highway 34, tangent to the Lebanon Police Department for delivery. We also discussed the exception of the trash trucks and the school buses. Truck drivers do have a route to drive in, and I did give Ron a picture of one of the truck routes where they're supposed to go. And they're not really supposed to be driving in the residential areas. They're running our intersection. So, and also Ron, he said they're in the progress of repairing our intersection, and we appreciate that. So what were the findings? As many of us have requested a four-way stop. And I also wanted to add, I don't understand why school buses come through our street. No kids are to be picked up, but they turn off of Mary Street, either to Mullins Drive, to Highway 20, or off Mullins Drive. And then they can go to Highway 34 from Tangent. Why don't they use the 5th Street where there's access? I don't understand that. There's no kids that they pick up. They come through there, they go north and south.
Does anybody have anything concerning? Well, we're not the school board, but I know that sometimes when they pick routes, they're just trying to find the fastest route to start their pickups. But myself or the counselors here won't be able to answer why the school buses do what they do. That'd be more of a school board question. Do you have anything?
No, as far as keeping trucks off, and I think Frank and I have talked about this several times, I'm not sure that we have the legal ability to keep trucks off of residential streets. I don't believe that there's a mechanism in place for that, unless there was a specific, hazard, like an airport, where low flying, you can do that, or a bridge issue where we can keep them off based on weight restriction. But in order to keep trucks off the street, there's real no mechanism in place to do that.
But why don't they go off of 5th and go to Reese Parkway and go around to the Best Western Premier right there and make their delivery? That's where they make their deliveries.
Sure, but they're traveling on a public roadway, so we really don't have a mechanism in place to do anything with that.
So you have an answer about the 4-way stop?
The council's going to discuss that at the end of the meeting, like I told you, in council business. And so stick around so we can tell you what happened. I don't think this is the place to go over that.
No.
We only have this time to answer your question, but we're still going to talk about that later, okay? I promise.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Gamal Nassar.
Good evening, everyone, council members. I know you haven't seen me around too much lately, but I'm doing some renovation on some of the properties that I own. So I'll be doing that for the next couple of months, and then I'll be all over the place again. Today, I'd like to talk about the importance of small towns requiring businesses to pay an annual license fee. While this may seem somewhat bureaucratic, it plays a crucial role in the overall well-being and prosperity of our community. First and foremost, let's consider the impact on tourism. Small towns often rely on tourism as a significant source of revenue. These visitors bring in much-needed dollars that help support local businesses and the community at large. When businesses pay an annual license fee, it ensures that they're contributing to their fair share to the town's upkeep, which in turn enhances the overall appeal of tourists. Moreover, license fees are essential for public safety. Fire inspections are one of the critical components of these licenses. Businesses, especially those dealing with flammable materials or operating in densely populated areas, often have to adhere to strict safety standards. These inspections help identify potential hazards and ensure that appropriate safety measures are in place. By requiring these fees, we can fund regular inspections, keeping our town safer for residents and visitors alike. Keep in mind, this is not going to solve all our problems. It's just another source of revenue. In case of emergencies, these licenses are also vital. Businesses could be required to provide updated emergency contact information as part of their licensing process. In the event of a disaster or crisis, first responders need accurate information to reach business owners quickly. This ensures a swift and coordinated response, minimizing damage and potentially saving lives. Beyond safety, the annual license fee serves as a means of tracking local businesses. This information is essential for town planning and economic development. It helps officials understand which industries are thriving, which may need additional support, and where growth opportunities lie. In essence, it allows the town to make informed decisions about how to allocate resources and plan for the future. Additionally, these fees can be used to fund local initiatives and services that benefit everyone. They can support small business development programs, beautification projects, community events, all of which contribute to a thriving town that attracts both residents and visitors. Now, maybe what should a business expect when paying their annual license fee? Typically, my thought is to provide essential information such as, business name, address, contact information, and details about their operations possibly. This helps maintain an accurate and up-to-date registry of businesses in town. In conclusion, the importance of requiring small businesses to pay an annual license fee cannot be overstated. It supports tourism, ensures safety through fire inspections, police inspections, and emergency contacts, and provides valuable data for town planning and development. It's a mechanism for local businesses to contribute to the overall growth and well-being of the community they call home. I don't take this suggestion lightly. I've done some research and asked a lot of questions to myself and other local businesses up and down Main Street. And I've talked to probably 20 different business owners and multiple others. And the only individuals that thought that we didn't need one or didn't want to pay one or would not pay one were those that didn't own a business. We appreciate what the town does on our street. We appreciate the flowers. We appreciate the cones. We appreciate, all the things that the city pays for. Yet, if you own a business here in town, but you live out of city limits, you pay nothing to the city. I live in town, so I pay taxes to the city, but my business doesn't pay any. In asking, I do know that Lebanon used to do this, and apparently it was very difficult to collect, and it wasn't financially worthwhile, but that was $25. Every business owner I've spoken to says they wouldn't mind paying somewhere between $100 and $250 a year for this to be part of the community. And I think I'm not asking to do this. What I'm asking is to consider this and maybe put a small 90-day committee together to investigate the options of doing this and see if it would work for our community. That's what I'm suggesting. Any questions?
Any questions?
I assume you're talking about all businesses, not just Main Street?
No, all businesses. And, I thought about that because Main Street does offer probably a little bit more support to businesses because of the Lebanon Downtown Association and so forth. Maybe there could be, again, I'm just throwing this out there. I don't have all the answers. Maybe there's an additional fee if you're right on Main Street, because First Fridays, for example, benefits you. Of the concerts that are downtown in the past month, several months, benefits you. The two parks
I just wanted to
are
clarify.
downtown. So yeah, I think that it's not, to me, it's the entire city, no matter where you are, and possibly a little bit more if you're maybe where LDA says downtown is. I don't know. Again, that's what I think a small committee could investigate and see if it's worthwhile doing. It's a really good question because I've been thinking about it myself.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. G,
Yes, sir.
do you know why we discontinued?
My understanding was that it was too hard to manage and it wasn't worthwhile. And in thinking about that, I agree. It wasn't worthwhile because maybe businesses didn't want to pay or were paying late, and having staff dedicated to that might not have been efficient. But when you're talking about $25 a month versus $100 to $150, I'd be willing to pay $200 a year for the services that I receive from the city. I would prefer to pay $100, but if you told me that to have my business downtown, I'd pay $200 to have the flowers, to have the trees, to have LDA do everything it does, I would welcome that because I want to be part of the city and have buy-in.
Would you include home-based businesses?
No. However, you're asking me that. If you were asking the committee, there might
The
be
one
a
that did the
difference.
research, so that's what
Yeah,
I'm
the
asking.
reason I wouldn't is because they don't rent or own commercial space in the city, and they do it at home. So it would be hard
So a
to,
home-based business wouldn't,
probably,
your plan wouldn't pay.
probably not, because I don't know how you would make that happen.
Hmm.
Unless there was a way of I just couldn't figure out how to that's the word I'm looking for, acknowledge that I run a home-based business and then charge me a $25 fee per year or something like that. I wouldn't know how
We
to.
would
Now,
have to do record searches to see who has them, and that would be
Maybe.
labor intensive. And that's it. People would just
Yeah,
say,
and
oh, I
that's
don't
why,
have
Yeah.
it.
that's why I went by the
Yeah.
wayside before,
Now-
was the amount of administrative work on it was so overwhelming to make it happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I believe
But-
it wasn't enforceable was the issue we ran into because someone could just opt not to pay the fee. And what are we going to do?
City of Lebanon is one of the few cities that if you sell a property within the city limits, you automatically have a lien against your property, and that's for water, even if you're all paid up. So it's.
That is incredibly
Isn't it?
unpopular. And
Yeah.
I can't
Right?
imagine doing that to a
Yeah,
business.
very popular. But my point is that I understand it wasn't enforceable, but when, again, to me, it was an issue of $25 a month. But if you put the right package together and make folks understand why this fee is, because we need money for our streets, we need money for our police, we need money for these things that we're running short. And if you want to do business here in Lebanon, I mean, typically Lebanon is known as a very business-friendly community, city. And I didn't realize why until I found out that you don't have to do anything. You don't even have to go to the city and tell them that you're opening a real estate office. If you're opening a restaurant or something that has to do with water or sewage, yes, but you don't have to let the city know. Does anybody here know how many businesses there are in Lebanon? We don't know. I don't know if city staff knows, but we have no idea, and they come and go. So I don't know. Now, to answer your question though, Councilman, if you have a home-based business, like some of us do around here, that you're selling visible items on your lawn, possibly. If you have a home-based thrift store, possibly. But if you're doing Fiverr work or something like that off your computer, no, I don't think so. But I think that would be for a committee to answer.
It would be difficult. I mean, when Myra had her bakery
Right.
out of the house, asking her to pay an additional fee
I don't think so.
would not have been, I would have been down here permanently.
Sure, I agree with you.
Because you think about it, she has to have inspections from the state that had to come into our house and inspect and had to pay $500 every year to have that done.
Right.
And then just the business license was $400 a year. And if you got it 5 days before the cutoff of the year, it was still $400 for those 4 days. And then again, later, the expenses are there.
Yeah,
The other thing I don't, it's kind of a vague phrase you use. Businesses don't pay their fair share. Who determines what that is? Is it by footprint, by gross sales? What's your thought?
There's a couple different ways. Some of that I've seen are by number of employees or possibly revenue or just size of building or a standard fee. You know, 1 to 5 employees is 100, 5 to 10 is 150, anything over 10 is 200. You know, that's fairly simple. I would keep it simple.
Join the chamber.
Pardon?
Kind of like what they pay to join the chamber, it's by employees.
I think the chamber is by sponsorship, not by employees.
No, it's by
So-
employees.
So we're over the 2 minutes,
Yeah,
so
sorry about
we need
that.
to move on.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you
Gamal.
for your time.
Thank you.
We'll move into the public hearings. The first one, economic opportunity analysis approval. Presenter is Kelly Hart. The public hearing regarding this is for approval is now open at 6:23. Kelly, will you present your presentation?
Sir. So before you tonight is the formal approval of the economic opportunity analysis. It also includes a proposed amendment to our comprehensive plan, which basically incorporates the economic opportunity analysis as an appendix to it. So this has been presented to the public, the Planning Commission, and the City Council numerous times over the last year. So I will breeze over some of the summary of it, but generally speaking, the economic opportunity analysis did an evaluation of our buildable lands to make sure that we had sufficient land area for commercial and industrial development growth over a 20-year cycle. That analysis identified that we have more than sufficient land, including a surplus of both industrial and commercial lands and a gross of about 289 acres more than what is needed over that 20-year cycle. In addition, they identified opportunities for growth and our competitive advantages, similar to our proximity to Highway 20 and I-5. We have several automotive and freight rail transportation options for some larger industrial. plenty of availably zoned land, a mixture of existing businesses that help for a stable economy, and residential high quality of life. The conclusions of the EOA identified, again, we have a surplus of land, so we don't need to consider doing an amendment of any zoning to accommodate industrial or commercial development. We do have some constraints, mostly in some infrastructure demands, as well as wetland constraints that are going to be a continuous item of focus for staff to try to address. There is silver lining associated to wetlands with recent Supreme Court rulings, so that's good news. We have an availability of a variety of sizes of different sites to accommodate a wide range of different economic opportunities. And we also have some unique opportunities for growth, specifically referring to Western University and the growth of the university there. And some key recommendations that came out of the EOA. It's an amendment to the economic element of the comprehensive plan, which is before you tonight. Align the city's goals for economic development with our infrastructure planning to make sure that we are providing infrastructure expansion for economic growth. Monitor and replenish the supply of our commercial and industrial lands as needed. Regretfully for me personally to say, one of the things that's recommended is consider the conducting a local wetland inventory, which will be something we'll have to talk through. But then also support business growth and retention, continue to plan for development, and support our regional efforts for economic capacity as well. That's a general, very brief summary of the whole document that's several hundred pages long, but the general recommendation is to approve the economic opportunity analysis and the comprehensive plan amendment that incorporates the recommendations and the goals and policies. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Does the council have any questions of staff? Is there anybody that from the public that would like to speak on this matter? And the public hearing is hereby closed at 6:20 or 6:27. All further discussion will be limited to council and staff at this time. Will the city attorney please read the title of the ordinance?
Ordinance Bill number 2023-10, a bill for an ordinance amending Chapter 5 Economic Development of the Lebanon Comprehensive Plan and adopt the 2023 Economic Opportunity Analysis. Ordinance number 3005.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion's been made to approve. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Move on to the second public hearing, housing needs analysis approval. Public hearing regarding this is now open at 6:28. Will the community development director please give her report?
Yes, sir. This one is even longer in coming and process. We started this process in 2018 to do a housing needs analysis. It was completed in 2019 and presented to the city council at that point in time. However, since none of the goals or policies required any changes to the comp plan and were consistent with the existing goals and policies, at that time, there was no formal adoption of the document. Since then, state laws have changed that require the document to be adopted by ordinance. And so this document is presented in front of you to formalize the adoption process. Generally speaking, the document identifies that the city has enough land to build housing for the next 20 years, along with a generous surplus. Our zoning aligns for the opportunity to provide many different opportunities for housing in different income levels. And we have sufficient infrastructure to accommodate housing development. So unless there's any questions, the recommendation before you is to adopt the housing needs analysis and the amendment to the comprehensive plan to incorporate this document along with the goals and policies. And that completes my report.
Council have any questions of staff? Is there anybody from the public who would like to speak on this matter? And the public hearing for this is closed at 6:29. All further discussion will be limited to council and staff at this time. Will the city attorney please read the title of the ordinance?
Ordinance Bill number 2023-13, ordinance number 3008, a bill for an ordinance amending Chapter 6 Housing of the Lebanon Comprehensive Plan and adopt the 2019 Housing Needs Analysis.
Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made to approve. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Move on to the third item today, housing production strategy approval. This public hearing regarding this is now open at 6:30. And again, Kelly Hart, will you please present your staff report?
Well, we just did a work session at 5 o'clock that talked a lot about our housing production strategy as the solutions to our severe rent burden. And at that meeting, we identified several of the action items that are being taken. We have also had several community meetings, workshops, and work sessions with the city council and planning commission over the last year and a half on this item. So I will keep it brief. The recommendation is to adopt the formal housing production strategy. And I'm willing to go through any of them in detail if you would so like, but that concludes my report.
Thank you. Does council have any questions of staff?
I just want to clarify, because I always have to do this. There's nothing in this strategy. This is just weapons for us. It doesn't lock us necessarily into anything in particular.
It does lock us into things in particular, yes. This is not like the severe rent burden meeting where we are required to discuss and consider options. When items in here are listed as to do something, we will do. There are light items listed in here such as evaluate ways to support land acquisition and banking. Our requirement in that is to talk about it, research it, and determine whether we want to do it. There are other items in here that specifically say that we will be doing something, such as adopting a small lot, single family home standard. It locks us in that we will do that. It does not lock us in as to how we are going to do that. That is still going to be the conversations that are going to occur for years as we go through that.
It's a living document.
It's a living
We're going to
document.
react to it. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something.
This just gives us the process of what we're going to talk about for the next 8 years.
Any other questions of staff? Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on this matter? Public hearing is hereby closed at 6:32. All further discussions will be limited to council and staff at this time. Will the city attorney please read the title of the resolution?
Resolution number 2023-15, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Lebanon, Oregon, adopting a housing production strategy.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
A motion's been made to approve. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion to approve has been passed. On to number 4 item, city manager profile adoption. Presenter is me. This is open at 6:33. Let me bring up the thing here real quick. I know that this item has been talked about last council meeting. I think the biggest sticking point was the coming up with a committee. Was that the big sticking point?
I think
Or
that's
the-
probably one of them. But the way this is, of course, worded is that it's an informal. Keep me from saying anything incorrect here, Ron and Trey. It's an informal committee that serves at the pleasure of the mayor or something along those lines. So that keeps it from being subject to ad hoc rules.
Yeah, keeping ourselves out of that part.
Yes.
Correct.
And the importance of that, of course, is that if whoever's on that committee is discussing names, then if it's an ad hoc committee that's streamed online and everybody can view, then of course those people know they're being discussed. So that's not exactly how we should recruit a city manager.
So with that, I'll just add a little bit to this. We updated the job description as requested by council. There's a copy of the red line version, so you can see the changes. We updated the candidate profile position and got the changes included in that, and that's all incorporated into this resolution. Also should state that our proposal would be to review this, leave open until filled, and review it at 30 days. And bring council the applications to review in an executive session at that point, if there are any. And I can answer any other questions that would pertain to that.
So Ron, timeline wise, would that put us at our October session for that executive session or a work session in October?
Yeah, I think our intent would be to advertise ASAP, probably starting tomorrow, at various locations, right? International City Managers Association, I had to make sure I had counted that on my fingers. League of Oregon Cities, numerous others. Yeah, we'll find different places to advertise this and put that out there. It'll all come into our portal through Angela, and she'll collect all of the applications. And at 30 days, that'd put us down into potentially doing a review. I think it'd be tough to do. I guess we could see what we had by the first meeting in October. But maybe the second meeting in October, did an executive session, because I believe there'll be a work session at that point too, so.
Yeah, people aren't going to have resumes ready and go, let me do it. So it'll take a little bit of time.
And just, again, you'd leave it open until filled. You can review applications as they come in.
So are we going to have a committee?
Well, that was a discussion that Ron and I, we talked about this a little bit. A committee, well, let me say it this way first. I think if we bring together a committee, I think we're making the process even harder on the city and everybody. I think we run into issues with a committee looking at applications. Could I be wrong on that, or?
Yeah, I think you'd have to be very careful with that.
When we talked about it,
Yeah.
there was never the committee was going to look at applications.
Yeah.
Committee were the headhunters.
I think we just need to enroll people in town that are invested in the town and finding us the people, not in interviewing them or taking resumes.
Well,
or-
let me-
I don't know how to do that.
What's that?
How do you do that? I think that's what the challenge is. How do you get important people in town involved in this enough to help us find the city manager? I don't know how that mechanism works.
I guess the way I look at it, if the council wants to put together a committee, we'll put together a committee. But the way I look at it is that do we need to put together a committee for those people that are prominent in the community that know individuals that could actually meet these requirements? Are they going to sit? Are they not going to say anything unless they're on a committee? I have a feeling they're going to call their friends and go, hey, you might want to apply for this.
Yeah, I'm not trying to say we should have a committee for it. I guess I'm being too simplistic here, maybe. We just need to find ways for the important people in town to give us the input, to give us people, instead of just, because there's going to be some people, I think you're wrong, there's going to be some people, as soon as they see that, they're going to push that button on the resume because they've sent it to everybody else. That's what they're out there doing. So we need to find somebody local that's invested, and I don't know if we've identified the best way to do that, or if there is a best way to do that.
I don't know. I can't answer that. I think that the people that are interested in a position like this, even local or nationwide or international, for all I know, they're already aware of they're already looking. And I don't know if we need to put together a committee to address maybe the issue that you're talking about. I could be wrong, though.
No, I don't think you are. When we first started talking about the committee, it was to get input into what we were looking for. I think we've already solved that issue. The folks that are going to help, as in the past, and it's worked, when we narrow it down to, say, 3 people, we have public meetings where they get to meet the public people. Last time we did it at the library, and you got to meet the candidates and give input to your counselors and the mayor at that point.
Who's going to be doing the narrowing down?
That
We
would,
will.
that would be us.
Yeah.
The council.
The council. Through Angela is going to get all the information, and then she is going to bring that to council for us to take a look at and see who we want to interview, or are we getting a bad batch and we need to keep it open? that sort of thing. So I don't think the need for a committee still exists. I think what the council did at the last meeting, giving Ron some instructions on changes and things that we wanted to see, I think we get it out there and then we involve the public, not with every single person, but with the ones that the council's decided, these are the three that we want to take a strong look at.
Yeah, they meet the requirements and they,
Exactly.
yeah.
I think to do anything else, I think we're going to overcomplicate
Yeah, I
the
think we're-
process
yeah,
and delay
exactly.
it.
And the part that, the part that I kind of, I started maybe some of this complication, which is something I'm fairly good at. But the complicated part, it would be complicated to have a committee that's doing this. My point and my thinking was, let's encourage. We all know people. We're not looking for the people that are out there actively looking for jobs, although we might be. I'm not saying
No, I
anybody's
agree.
excluded. Timing may be right, somebody's moving on, somebody wants to move to a smaller town, all that stuff, all those conditions could come together and end up with the perfect candidate. But what I think we miss sometimes is the headhunting portion of it. And headhunting, to me, starts with a personal connection. It is Joe Banker, who at a banking convention met, John, somebody else that was a speaker, who he says, hey, looking to transition in jobs. I've got all kinds of, managerial experience, a little bit in the public sector, just a great guy. Hey, that person shoots that name over to whoever. Why can't we reach out to that person and say, listen, your name was thrown out there. Would you be interested? This is a great place. Let's sell Lebanon. We can't make any promises, but if you're looking to spread your wings, there's an opportunity. That was kind of my point, is how do we draw in those people that may have those connections, that we can make that personal connection to try to maybe bring in somebody outside the box. And that was right from the start. That was kind of it was kind of the thought of, we've always done it this certain way. And we've gotten good candidates, we've gotten not so good candidates. And I say candidates, not relating to anybody that we've hired or not hired. But what can we do to take that, but then something else? Hey, maybe we can get a military guy that's just retired and, nobody would think he's probably ready, but maybe he is. Somebody that's retired from 20 years of corporate work, he's retiring at the top of his game and looking for a new challenge. How do you find those people that aren't really looking through a personal connection?
Well,
That's all I was thinking.
oh, I was just going to say that maybe the way we need to look at it is that I don't know how this would look if it'd be an advertisement or an announcement from the city that if that accompanies the job description. Maybe it needs to be just a flyer. It says, if you know people that are possibly qualified or interested, contact your city council person and pass that name along, help the city, be part of the city, whatever, how you market that. But
In that context, we can say it could be confidential because it doesn't become part of the public record until they get to the next level.
That's my concern. I don't want to break any rules or anything. I just want to be able to say to people, and if I get somebody who's interested and they're connected to me somehow, there's one portal. It goes to the website, right? And they can put in their resume, right? And I've not done anything untoward or,
is there any other questions?
No, I just want to remind, I know we spent a lot of time with the last one talking about all of the various pieces in the job description. And one of the takeaways I remember from Angela was that each of these will be involved in how we weight candidates based on what's in those job descriptions. So if there's something in there that people do not like, this is your chance, because this is exactly what we're going to be evaluating candidates on.
well, I think we also, I want to be clear, we're not using it as a scoreboard. You got 12 points and you got 10, so I have to hire 12 points, right? There's
Yeah,
still-
we
there's
did talk about that too.
still personal
Yeah, you don't-
discretion.
And
It's
the
a better-
lowest bid, right? What we
Yeah.
kind of were talking about. You don't always have to go with the lowest bid, although we kind of do usually, but not always, or the highest scoring candidate in this case, I suppose. But yeah, there's still discretion there.
Any other questions or comments from council?
Mm-mm.
Is there anybody from the public would like to speak on this regarding this matter? Is that a yes, Gamal? Okay.
I believe in the system. You were elected to represent us in our various wards, and we trust that you can make those decisions and come up with some great candidates. I was part of a very similar to what you suggested, KJ, with the Boys and Girls Club in Albany, and they did an extensive search, came up with 3 candidates, and they invited stakeholders and folks in the community that they knew to a soiree, and we got a chance to meet the candidates and provide cards and what we thought. And I thought it was a great, that's who's still the executive director there, and he's doing a fantastic job. And I think that process and allowing you to make those decisions is the right way to go.
Yep.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak on this matter? All right. Public hearing is closed at 6:45. All further discussion will be limited to council and staff at this time. Will the city attorney please read the title of the resolution?
Resolution number 2023-14, a resolution of the City of Lebanon adopting the position profile as the standards, criteria, policy, directives, and methodology to be used in hiring a city manager and allowing for public comment.
Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion for approval has been given and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion to approve has been passed. We're going into regular session. Item number 5, system development fees for accessory dwelling units. Interim city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. So at the August meeting, Councilor Salvage brought up the fact that he wanted to talk about SDCs as they relate to accessory dwelling units. We have a memo prepared, but since Councilor Salvage is not here, I feel that it would be relevant to table the meeting or table this agenda item to the October meeting so that he can participate in it rather than go through it tonight.
Is there a motion?
I move that we table this to the October meeting, the
Second.
SDC discussion.
He seconded.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Motion's been made to move this to the October meeting. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Then it'll be moved to October. It's passed. Thank you. On this item number 6, banking authorized officers and signatures approval. The finance director, please present his staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Before you is a letter drafted for, in this case, Pacific Premier Bank. But our hope is that with your approval tonight, this will serve as the format for all of our banking changes that we need to make. As you are all likely aware, there have been some staffing changes. And the charter dictates who is responsible for signing all orders on the treasury, AKA our checks for accounts payable, payroll, and the like. So with that said, specifically the mayor and the city recorder are the 2 primary signers on the bank according to the text of the charter. Backing up the city recorder, should the city recorder's position be vacant for any reason, is the city manager. Backing up the mayor is the council president. In this case, we're asking for authorization to establish the 3 signers, Mayor Jacola, Julie Fisher as the city recorder, and Ron Whitlatch as the interim city manager, so that we have at least 3 levels of signatures there. We are also asking to establish corporate officers for the banks, and the corporate officers is necessary to access the accounts. That does not mean move money specifically or being able to withdraw any funds from the accounts, but it allows access to the bank accounts for audit needs, for statement downloads, whatever the case may be. So we are asking for 4 people to be authorized as corporate officers. The only addition to the original 3 is myself in the finance capacity. With that, I can answer any questions you might have, but I rest on my report.
All right, thank you. Is there, council have any questions? Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made to approve. It's been seconded. All in favor? Say
Aye.
All opposed? Motion to approve is passed.
Thank you.
Next item is Cheetah Lake Trail Awards. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council again. Before you tonight is kind of a synopsis of the bid opening that we held yesterday for the Cheetah Lake Trail project, which is being funded by a grant. I'd say it's something related to coronavirus, but we received it back in I think, 2021. Anyway, we finally got a design, went through the environmental and the archaeological and put it out to bid. You can see we had 14 bidders, which really shocked me to see that many bidders right now, especially in this economy. Our estimate was $290,631. We had a low bid of $232,155, which was Knife River. That bid was rejected. They did not pull their documents from the city website, therefore we're not on the plan holders list, which is a requirement of our specifications. Then we went to the next low bidder, which is North Santiam Paving Company at $234,996. With that, I'd like to change what the request for tonight on the memo is in terms of award. Right now, as of 3:30 this afternoon, I got word that there's a potential protest that could take place. They have 3 days to inform us in writing of said protest that they know that they didn't follow the specifications. The wording in the advertisement is may instead of a shall. So I'll work with Trey if we do get the protest. But what my recommendation on the award would be that council award to North Santiam Paving when any and all protests have been addressed and put to bed. You don't have to say put to bed. That was my word.
Is the protest from the guys who didn't use
Yes.
the paperwork, right?
Yes,
Just
and that's
be clear.
typical in the contracting world, whether they do or don't, they just mentioned it today. In most cases, people don't protest. There's not a lot of risk here in them winning this, I don't believe, since it's listed in our specifications and the specifications are part of the contract. So I think in the future, we'll probably put some bold lettering in our advertisements that
Shall.
that refer people to that. You can see that we had, 12 of the 14 bidders that did do this. And hasn't happened for, I don't know, several years where people haven't picked them up from us. It's typical that you would of any agency. What they do is they get them from plan holders lists, and those are typically read-only type stuff.
They protest, what are they protesting? We don't have to pick the lowest bid. Am I wrong? have to?
We would need a reason, which this is the reason right
I
here,
got- I got
right? Right. We couldn't just automatically.
Say we
put
like them
ORS.
better?
Yeah, yeah.
That's
I
not
mean,
good enough.
now there's times when I would say that would be a good deal, but,
I got
so
you.
anyway, that's the recommendation tonight.
Does council have any questions?
No.
So what your recommendation is to have a motion to approve this
Motion to approve,
and then, but be aware that there
3-day
could be a
hold.
protest.
yes.
Okay.
And if it's such
Just wanted to make
Move to
sure.
approve pending resolution of
Yes.
all potential protests.
yes.
Right.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve
Second.
what Trey said. Move to approve that,
Pending,
pending,
all-
that-
I'm just going to cross what I had written out.
okay, yes, move to approve pending resolution of the possible protest.
Second.
Motion's been made to approve. It's been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion to approve is passed.
That sugar must be getting to Trey.
sugar's kicking in, I'll tell you that.
Okay, item number 8, City Manager Pro Temp Administrative Authority. Presenter will be the city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, I put together a brief memo. It points out what the charter says regarding the potential termination of city employees. A little bit of background. Obviously, a lot of the charter goes back many years. And I think this is one of those provisions that's probably made a little bit more sense when it was passed, in that there was probably an envisionment of one, a much smaller workforce, and two, a hiring process that in today's day and age can last anywhere from 8 months to a year or even more if you don't like the first group of candidates. And so the thought was that it really acts as a hindrance to the acting pro tem city manager to be able to effectively do their job by having to come to the council and basically have a hearing before any terminations can happen. And let me be clear that this isn't in response to anybody that's on the chopping block or in response to anybody that is being considered. It was more of, let's look ahead because Ron's going to be in this position, we think, for at least a while. There have been some concerns, very legitimate concerns raised by some people who I've talked to, in that there's a concern that, hey, this is in the charter, we're kind of circumventing the charter. And I understand those. I don't necessarily agree with them. I think we're addressing the charter is what we're doing. We're addressing what it says by getting approval ahead of time. I did send an email to CIS, specifically the employment experts at CIS, and said, hey, listen, this is the memo. This is what we're looking at doing. I did get a response from, and this is really weird. I'm wearing progressive lens contacts, so I'm supposed to be able to see close. It's not quite there yet. This is from Pamela. Pamela is the only word I can see, at CIS. And her response was, I looked this over and I don't have any concerns after I read it. She does highlight one question of, what's the difference between department managers and that kind of stuff. Well, the reality is that the charter, even the full-time city manager is required and instructed to talk to council, bring it before council before they make any major changes or terminate any department heads. So that's why I figured that doesn't change. So I just limited the authority to employees and non-department heads. So the other option I was thinking of is, it's just a matter of terminology. Ron's been named, I don't even think we ever used the term pro tem until now after reading the charter, but technically I guess he's city manager pro tem. So another option is just to get rid of the pro tem and say you're a month-to-month city manager, not temporary. And you know what, serve at our leisure or your leisure. You get tired of it, you can and just get rid of the pro tem category. I think either one works, and I think it's just a matter of giving the administrative head of the city the ability to do their job and do it immediately and not have to come back to council and try to get 5 votes for any changes that he sees and most likely the department head see fit to do.
And I can add a little bit to that. So my intent with this would be to still come to the council with these actions unless we were in a situation where, let's say, paid administrative leave or something like that comes up for a definite cause termination. I think we were looking at it in terms of protecting the city from having to pay out any more than what they needed to. But in most cases, and I don't look for much of this, but in most cases, I would still feel more comfortable just based on the way the charter is written, coming to the council in an executive session. But there could be a case where, to protect the city from future or more financial burden, that'd be used. But I think for the most part, I would still look at it as coming to the council for that.
But don't you need that authority if we have a more immediate situation?
I think, and that's where this is, that's where this is. at.
Is there a reason we put pro tem on there?
I wasn't around when the charter was written. Or are you saying when we put pro tem, when we,
What, on him?
well, I think we never did. What we did, I think they named him interim, and then we went back
Right.
and read the charter and we're supposed to appoint a pro tem. So I think technically they're the same thing.
So this is semantics.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
distinction without a difference.
I was going to say, how did we do this when, with our previous city manager, it was interim for like a year?
Nobody brought it up.
Okay, got it.
So this is just doing the 5 Ps. Prior planning prevents poor performance.
There you go.
Like the way I cleaned that up, Ken?
Does the council have any questions of staff? Is there a motion?
I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made to approve. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is passed. Number 9 item, city manager's report.
Thank you,
Oh,
Mr.
no, wait a second.
Yep.
So do I call him now that that's been approved? Do I just call him city manager?
No.
We didn't change anything.
Okay.
You didn't select that option.
Just say, hey, Ron, talk.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Where were we here? City manager's report. Unless there's anything in particular anybody wants to cover in the report itself, I've just got a couple other things that wanted to run over. One of them being the biweekly pay for city council now. So rather than monthly, it's every 2 weeks. So you guys will get your $1 million salaries and $500,000.
That doesn't double the amount though, right?
So, yeah.
I don't even have an office.
Anyway, so just look for that. If you have questions, Brandon, he can help you out with that. One other thing that came up was a delegate for the League of Oregon Cities. They are getting ready to elect their board of directors, and they are asking each city have a delegate. I asked the mayor if he wanted to appoint somebody or have somebody do that tonight at tonight's meeting, or if there was a volunteer. I believe it's October, Kelly, when? Yeah, it's a Saturday. You can vote remotely, and it's for the board of directors for League of Oregon Cities. So if there's somebody from,
If there's no volunteers, I'll do it.
I nominate Counselor Workman
I would second that nomination.
So I guess we have a
right
delegate.
there. It's you.
I will get the information to them and get you I'll figure out what we need to do there
Okay,
and let you know.
glad to do it.
Tag, you're it.
To your chagrin.
Let's see. Last, send everybody out a couple of updates on the water line break. We're back in business. That was a catastrophic break, probably the biggest break I've ever seen here when you have a 20-foot section of pipe come out of the ground. Based on tree roots, our crews did. That was over on 7th Street between Azalea and Rhododendron.
Oh,
Took out a great big tree. Probably a leaky water line that just super saturated the roots, and then the tree went over and took the water line with it. So, but our crews did phenomenal work. We got
you
people
did.
back in water.
Fix quick.
Yeah, they had it put back together that day. They had to jumper from good water main to that water main to at least have water to flush toilets and boil. So our crews did good. Yes. And with that, I can answer any other questions.
I'm gonna sound like I'm backtracking here because you said October 14th and I completely missed it. I'm going to be out of town with my wife that day from Thursday until Sunday. And that is that weekend, right?
I believe it was the 14th.
Saturday. It's the 14th.
Yeah, I'm gone from the 12th to the 15th, so.
I nominate Counselor Dykstra.
Oh,
I'll second that one too.
I can't take on anymore.
I think we allow the Lord Mayor to go ahead and.
Yeah, I think.
And I like to make clear, I'm not running from it. I'd do it. I just don't think that my wife would be very
Sure.
happy.
I'll see you in the
Counselor
parking
Salvage
lot.
isn't here. We could always pin it on him, so, you know.
I will get
He's-
you the.
He's not here. No, wait, 1, 2, 3, not
You're
it.
you're
No.
fine. It's just they like to have a delegate from each city, and we should
She
vote on it.
popped up on my shoulder.
Yeah, sure.
That concludes your,
Yeah, I have nothing
okay.
else.
I had something out of the report that I wanted to ask Frank about, actually. It goes back to the homeless situation. One of the things I saw in there, you've only had really 2 encounters with people that you had to move along or whatever, and you offered them services and they said no.
Correct.
So, and that's been it so far. So it's not been a
Correct.
big thing.
Correct. We've had probably 2 or 3 days since we've enacted it that people have utilized that space over at, yeah, on Oak Street.
Public
Maintenance
Works.
shops.
Yeah, thank you. Maintenance shops. Yeah. No one's taken up the JC. I don't know why, but no one wants to come and camp out in front there.
I can't understand.
Can't be the company.
Yeah, every encounter that we have,
Safest place in town.
yeah, every encounter we've come across, we've given out resources.
Well, I will say, I want to commend the police department. There was an encounter, but not in the downtown or one of those. It was over at the soup kitchen. And they had a blade pulled on them. And they handled it extremely well. I watched it since I'm the one that called it in. The terrible part about it was after they booked her into county, having pulled a blade on the officers, she was back here in 3 hours. So kind of gives us more to think about on our opening of the jail. So someone like that could be held at least until the judge more emphasis.
Absolutely.
But your guys did great. A lot
thank you.
nicer than I would have been back in the day. So that's all I had.
Any other questions of the city manager's report? Items from council.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to thank Chief Stevenson. He and I went to Sweet Home's FAC kind of homeless shelter, hut shelter, just to see kind of what that looked like and if that was something that could work here in Lebanon or what a partnership or what any of that would just look like, just to actually get our own eyes on what's out there, kind of at the invitation of the mayor that attended our last meeting, as well as their chief of police. So, I mean, I'm sure we're going to talk about that or talk about the time, place, manner restrictions that we went ahead and did at our October meeting. I guess, you know, when I left, I kind of felt pretty confident about what we're doing right now. Is it the best solution? Probably not, but I don't know what the solution is either. So again, I just want to say thank you for that. And I was glad to have someone else also kind of take a look at what's out there as well. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other items from council?
Yeah. Wanted to bring up the Second and Mary four-way stop question again. Dave and I did go out there, as we said we would, took a look at it. I understand that the traffic volume does not justify a four-way based on your traffic studies. The one thing I would bring up, and we've talked with Ron about this, when you're coming off Mary going eastbound, the trees that are along that line have been there since Lebanon, I think. No one's going to take them out, but they obstruct the line of sight. So you really have to, it's like at Second and Sherman with the 0 lot lines on those buildings. You have to basically pull into the intersection before you can get a good view of what's coming along. And I can see where that could be problematic for someone that's coming from that direction. And I'm just wondering if we can't revisit that four-way stop for a safety issue versus the traffic volume issue that we've looked at before.
Sure. I mean, council can direct us. So what we do at the engineering level is we've got an analysis that we do that do you meet these warrants? They're standard warrants. So if you don't, our recommendation is that you don't put a stop sign up because stop signs used for speed control that's not what their intention is. It screws up the traffic flows. In this case, Counselor Olfers is right. There are a bunch of really old, big trees that nobody wants to take out. So you could direct staff to, hey, put that as a four-way stop. It's a simple fix. I think you're not creating a precedent here by doing that. Since it is, you could consider it a safety issue. I mean, it does meet vision clearance right now, although it is obstructing, but it does meet vision clearance. So that's kind of a council decision for us. I can't come and recommend to you, put a stop sign in here when we don't have any basis to put a stop sign in there, other than potential for a sight vision type stuff.
I don't see any harm in putting a stop sign there for safety
No.
issues.
No,
And they're
neither do
healthy,
I.
healthy trees that aren't damaging the roadbed or anything at this time. They're,
Yeah, they don't
Sustainable.
appear to be.
yeah,
No.
Yeah,
yeah, I'm for it, obviously.
I am too. I would ask that council approve putting a stop sign there.
Well, we would do that at our next meeting with a formal motion, correct?
What I can do is, why don't I bring back a memo basically stating what we're doing there with, and why we're doing it, just so it's documented for the record. And then you could vote on it that way.
I would appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
You're welcome.
Is there any other comments or items from council? Public or press? Do you want to address the council at this time?
I don't know if this is appropriate to ask this or not, or if you can respond or not, but I was just curious between the two bids from Knife River and Santiam Paving, what was the difference between the two monetarily? What was the gap?
About $2,000.
Oh, okay, all right. I just want to make sure that if it wasn't over like just some sort of little miswording, that it wasn't costing our community a lot of extra money on.
Yeah,
Something,
we're
'cause-
bound by Oregon revised statutes and our specifications. So we try to take the lowest bid all the time, but there are cases where if there's mistakes that are made, then
Oh, I
if
recognize
I
that.
did do that, then I'd get a protest from the others. So it's kind of a
Oh, I
kind of a
recognize that.
double-edged
I was
sword.
just wondering how close they were, so they still are fairly close between each other.
Yeah, they're very close.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for clearing that up.
Is there anybody else or press? All right. Next scheduled council meetings, October 11th, 2023, work session 5 PM and regular session at 6 PM. And with that, regular session is adjourned at 7:12.